How is everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Zone. I am your host, EJ Savage. We got a fill-in guest, late notice for this guy, but I really appreciate it. It is Anth from CowboysCanFan. What is up, man?
What up, what up, what up? I don't know if I like that whole fill-in host title, but
Hey,
I'll take it, man. Whenever you need it, I'm your guy. I'll fill in anytime you need, man.
long overdue to actually get you on the pod, man, honestly. As far as like Cowboys content creators and stuff like that, I think I've been grinding with you guys, probably like top 3 longest, for as far as like other guys I used to watch. So I appreciate it a lot. I've been on your show many times. First time for you to be on mine, and it's gonna be a fun night, man.
Yeah, I love it. Appreciate having you having me on, man. This is great. I like being on the opposite side of this.
Oh yeah, man. So Cardinals beat Cowboys. Huge surprise, 28-16. Just go through your ideas or thoughts on the game.
Oh man, I'm trying to get past it. Like I'm trying to get past the game, but the main things that I noticed that stuck out to me the most, obviously to any fan, you could have been the first time you ever watched a football game and you would have thought the Arizona Cardinals were by far the better team. But the main thing was their running game. It just seemed like in the first half, anytime they ran the ball, they were picking up chunk yardage. And it's just such a kick in the stomach when they're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So that was my biggest takeaway. And then as far as the offense, everyone else is kind of on this wagon too right now. The red zone offense has just not done their job. I don't know if they were 1 for 5 or 1 for 4, but they just weren't good enough. The turnover at the end by Dak was just very ill-timed. And just when we get down in that red zone, we got to start getting points or at least getting touchdowns.
Yeah, you think about it, if Dak would have solidified that last drive, even if we don't come back and tie it up with a touchdown drive, you would feel so much better about this game's outlook. But to cap it off with that interception at the very end, man, into triple coverage, just not good. And I've noticed, at least in week 2, week 3, really the middle of the field has been a problem for Dak. He hasn't really been throwing there, and if you date back to last year in 2022, 66% of his interceptions came inside of the numbers in that deep middle part of the field, and it looks like Mike McCarthy's really not honed in on attacking that. So you have any opinion on that?
Well, there was that next gen stats going around and it shows his throw map. And you're completely right. A lot of his throws were to the left and rights of the field, didn't challenge the center of the field at all. And I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know if it's not having a safety blanket Dalton Schultz anymore, because Schultz used to work the middle of the field the best out of any of our players the last few years. So I don't know if he's just not confident with the guys he has. I don't know if it's the play calling. Is Mike McCarthy gun shy? Is Dak gun shy? But you look at his heat map for his throws, and yeah, he's definitely staying away from the middle. And then in the red zone, like you said, he threw into triple coverage, dead center of the end zone. Terrible read, terrible throw, and just such a punch in the stomach. Because I'm pretty, for a Cowboys fan, I'm pretty optimistic. Like I'm always thinking there's a way we're gonna get it, score, get the ball back, score again, tie it up, whatever it is. And we were in the red zone. We had a chance. We still had time on the clock. And just for him to get his first interception of the season, it was just, it felt a little too real like last year for me.
Absolutely, man. I was always kind of holding my breath a little bit every time Dak would kind of drop back for the whole season, basically thus far, watching it. I don't know why that is. Maybe I let the media kind of sway my feelings about Dak. He's usually not the quarterback to put it in harm's way, but that interception is inexcusable, even with his explanation on just trying to fit it, but by the ear of Kaiser White, I think it was. So, yeah, I don't know about that. I do got to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Caleb Espinoza, what's up? TGR's in the chat. Mike Tag,
TGR,
all you guys, and then your very own Cowboys Can Fan podcast, AJ, whoever's manning the ship there is in there as well. So I gotta appreciate them. I will say, though, it is interesting that you brought up Dalton Schultz, because Dalton Schultz, one of the best things that he did was find the soft spots in zone defenses. Primarily last game, the Cardinals set in a Tampa 2 Vic Fangio shell high, too high safety look. And how to beat that, really the weakness of that is attacking that middle part of the field, especially in just finding that little crease where linebackers and in the corner can't really, cover it. So I think you got a good point there. I did see a stat, though, that Jake Ferguson's been good against the zone. So I'm just confused. Do you kind of feel like what's your outlook on the tight end group as a whole? Peyton Hendershot's been bad for me. The second round pick's been bad for me. Jake Ferguson's been all right, but not as good as I expected. Are you kind of on the same side of things, or?
So it depends how we look at it. Obviously, with the passing game, we're lacking in the passing game. The tight ends have definitely in game 1 and game 3 have been the worst positional group on the field in my mind. But blocking, I still think they're doing their. I think they're holding their own blocking. But you don't draft a tight end in the second, or you don't release a guy that's been your receiving tight end for the last 3 seasons to now just have tight ends to block. Like we on the CanFan podcast have been very vocal about the tight end group. We didn't care how they got the Dalton Schultz yards, as long as those guys replicated the yards that Dalton Schultz had.
Yeah.
And to the first 3 weeks of the season, they haven't done that. So I got to lean towards being a little bit disappointed in what they've done. And it's just, there's just no threat. And I don't know if they got to start going away from multiple tight end sets. Like you said, with the Tampa 2, I don't understand why we're not trying to try to attack the middle of the field. You even get a guy like Kevontae Turpin in the slot and just send him up the middle of the field as fast as he can run. Yeah. And if he doesn't get the ball, he's at least going to open up stuff underneath. That's how you have to beat that defense. You have to send someone up the middle of the field. And if you're not going to take that shot down the middle of the field, it at least opens up the sideline or opens up the middle in the short range. And it's just kind of confusing. I felt like the Cowboys were it felt like they were playing with the lead, their offense, right? Like it felt like they were just methodically moving. The run game was good. Like the run game was looking good, but there's a time in the fourth quarter where it goes, okay, we got to start challenging downfield. We got to get chunk plays. We got to get chunk yards. And they sort of went away from that, or they just never even attempted it.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because you look at like time of possession, total yards, all those things. The Cowboys were actually better than the Cardinals in that game. However, it wasn't so much the problem of driving the field. They were good at driving the field. It's when this field gets condensed, and that you can see it with their route concepts and stuff like that. Like, I know that the bootleg has worked in the past and that boot rollout, but the Arizona Cardinals were completely ready for that. You use 2 over routes, over the top. If you're gonna do 2 over routes and stack them, there has to be real estate behind you to make those routes not get cluttered up and clogged. So and another thing is, like, you look at last year and all those, batted up balls or deflections and stuff like that. It was a safety making a play on a ball coming up because of the route concepts. And then they did the same thing in this game. Obviously only 1 interception for Dak, but it was kind of frustrating in the red zone to see not using shallow crosses. And if you bring the shallow cross, then you follow that up with a flat to the other side where that shallow started from. Like, the route concepts just were not there for me. I'm interested to hear what you think about that as well.
So I actually went through the all 22 a little bit today. I was off work today, so I was kind of just flirting with the all 22. I wanted to see if it was as bad as I remembered from the game. We do like to drink during game day, so I do miss some stuff. Kind of, it's a little foggy. So I went back and looked, and you're right. There just seemed to be no creativity on offense, and we just kept doing the same thing in the red zone. And if we want to make it deep into the postseason, red zone is such a critical aspect of it. And it's just not the first game that this has happened. This has been the full season. I chalked it up to the prior games that we had big leads, and they were just like, well, we don't need to score right now. Yeah. We'll just kind of play this kind of conservative offense and just kind of methodically move up and take the 3 points if we need to. But yeah, once the field was condensed, they had nothing open. They just kept, how many fades did they run? It felt like they were only running fade routes, and then they weren't working. There was no crosses. There was no outs. They didn't bring a guy in like Deuce Vaughn maybe to run something, there's just, I feel like with the pieces that we have on offense, we shouldn't have an issue scoring in the red zone, but obviously we do. And to that fact, it's game 3 and we don't have a wide receiver with a touchdown yet.
Yeah, no, that's a big issue. And I think that when you look at the Cowboys offense of past with Kellen Moore, he was very good in the red zone. So if you're Mike McCarthy, do you kind of fall back on what was working last year and kind of look at the film there and adapt your game and your red zone offense to what worked in the past? I certainly would. I mean, it's one thing to have it go, 2 games, 3 games. It's a pattern, so you got to
Yep.
get it figured out, and it has to be here soon because you're not playing an easy defense this week against the Patriots, and you're definitely not playing an easy defense against the Niners. So you gotta score points on those defenses.
Well, the thing that's concerning to me, though, the offense aside, we were supposed to be all this talk after the 2 weeks is everyone's calling it the doomsday defense too, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone's thinking we're the best defense in the league. Sure, we had 2 amazing outcomes in week 1 against the Giants and week 2 against the Jets, but the defense for me was the bigger concern in the game against the Cardinals. Did they tighten up in the second half? Yeah, but they had already shot themselves in the foot enough. Our offense needs to play with a lead, in my opinion. We need to get a
yeah,
lead. They look comfortable when they have the lead. They didn't look comfortable trying to play catch up on Sunday. So I need to see the defense start off fast. I don't know if you noticed it, but Micah looked out of sorts. It seemed
mm,
like there was some confusion on the line. LVE, don't even get me started with. He had such an awful game. Then you also had the injury with Trevon Diggs. Yeah, we know that. We've beat that enough like a dead horse. We don't got to talk about that. But what we got to talk about is the guy stepping up for him. When you got Deron Bland, you had Donovan Wilson, and you had Jordan Lewis, who are all now kind of in their first game out of position. So I
yeah.
don't know if that played into the defenses looking a little out of sorts, but I'm hoping by the time we suit up against the Patriots, everyone feels a bit more comfortable. This was just that one game that the Cowboys seem to have every season, and I hope we bounce back from it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had these outlier games in the past. The difference is, I thought that this team was different. I thought that they wouldn't let the outside noise affect them. Let me just roll through here some of the chats right here. Let me roll up. They need to play Schoonmaker. He's the best tight end on the roster, says Ultra, with his 4.6 speed. I don't know about that. I've been on record to say that we should have drafted Osiris Torrance. This would have been a really good game to have Osiris Torrance, let me tell you. TGR says, I need to see that Jason Garrett flea flicker. I don't know about that one as well, but TGR is always spitting some fun stuff in the chat. Tried to tell you about the line. It was just broken. New guys out there. Yeah, definitely from Caleb. Hire, fire, or promote Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, or Kellen Moore. I don't even want to do that, man.
That's too
Jason
soon.
Garrett and Kellen Moore. Yeah. Just throw them wayside, man.
Yeah.
Ultra says, if the Cowboys don't fix their linebacker issues, they will be one and done in the playoffs. Let's roll with that question a little bit. Do you think the linebackers are a problem?
Yeah, I do. And this is actually making us releasing Jabril Cox even look like a kind of a head scratcher right now. I know Cox never showed us what we expected, but the guy played with speed. He was a very fast guy coming to LSU.
Yeah.
And then obviously with the overshown injury in week 2 of the preseason, that guy would have been already starting in my mind if he stayed healthy. But right now, watching Leighton Vander Esch, it was just, I've been hard on Vander Esch, right? Like I'm always very vocal about him when we're watching the game. He's one of those guys that I watch on every play because the middle linebacker essentially is the quarterback of the defense. And for him to look like he's the one giving the least amount of effort and looking the most confused and not looking for contact, like my middle linebacker, I want him smashing into somebody every play. If it's not the running back, it's the guy blocking him. And I just have not seen that from Leighton Vander Esch yet this year. He kind of had a resurgence last year. He had a good season last year, but he's just falling back into his old ways too much. And yeah, linebacker's scaring me a little bit right now.
Yeah, man, I completely agree, and I honestly think that we used Wanye Thomas. I think he had like 0 snaps. It was either him or Marquise Bell, but those guys from the first 2 games, they show that they belong. They need snaps on this team because when the other guys, I don't know other than D-Law if anybody had a good game in my opinion. Excuse me, on that defensive side. So if you have guys that are not filling their run gaps and they're just seemed out of sorts, play those young guys. I mean, they're going to get snaps and they're going to continue to develop versus a guy that's seen a lot of stuff and he's still messing up. Just the blown coverage aspect of that secondary on the when we were trying to come back and then they get the long ball to Michael Wilson, man, horrible. I will say in the the defense's defense, Arizona's offensive coordinator has some good schemes. I think they went trips right one time, and if you're you're a Cowboys defender, you're thinking, oh, they're going to throw a quick screen or something like that to get one of those guys in space. No, they actually go a zone blocking scheme out left to a running back and Rondale Moore. He takes it to the house. So, you know, deciphering that stuff can be hard, obviously, but got to give some props to their OC because he had a good game call. And he put some stuff on film that we hadn't seen from them prior. So let me roll through here on the chat again. Jace, what up, man? Glad you could join. Ultra, they need to run a 2-back system in the red zone, Hunter and Pollard. Yeah, I mean, do you think we could use Hunter Lipke some more? I definitely do.
I 100% think we could, not only in the run game, but in the passing game. He could probably be our best receiving threat if you kind of put him, if you put the fullback kind of in the group of the tight ends.
Yep.
I feel like he will catch those contested throws. I'm still pissed about the tight ends dropping a couple of those contested throws in the earlier weeks. And now it's like, why not give him a shot? He should have been getting a shot against Arizona. There was just lack of creativity, and I would like to see Hunter Lepke get more touches, especially in the red zone. I think he was only on the field for, I don't know what his percent was, but it was a very, very low amount. And when he was out there, he was noticeable. So if a guy's noticeable with a low amount of reps, give him a few more.
Yeah, and I would say Hunter Lipke, I personally believe can be better than Zeke is currently, like the current iteration of Zeke in this offense. So we've seen a play that they used last year with Zeke where Zeke is the fullback and they hand it off with the quick handoff to the fullback and he goes up the line. Zeke used to get 3. I think Hunter Lipke got like 7 or 8 on that play. I mean, we got to utilize the guys that we have that have skill sets. I think Mike McCarthy has said that, you know, guys back in Green Bay with the Kuntz, you know, you got to be able to use the guys, don't just keep them on the roster for no reason. Go back to the chat. I did see why do you think Dallas is struggling / lacking the most? I guess, like, where do you think that they're struggling the most? In my opinion, it'd be the red zone offense, man.
It's got to be red zone offense because that's the thing that's happened all 3 games. You can't say the running defense because it was, like you said, the outlier. Like it happened last game, yes, but it happened in 1 game. The red zone inefficiency has been for all 3 games. So that's got to be the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to kind of get your opinion on, like, how big of an impact do you think it was missing those 3 Pro Bowl offensive linemen up front for this game?
Oh, I think it's more so than the guys on the field. I think it's kind of just, you had the Diggs injury and then you hear these 3 guys. You kind of everyone starts getting in their head that they have all these injuries. And I think it's more of a mental thing because they actually played pretty well. The offensive line actually held up pretty decently. I was actually pretty impressed. And it shows that we actually have more depth than we thought we did. I thought when I started hearing it, at first I thought we were just going to be without 2 of them. And I was like, okay, 2 of the 5 are out. We're still okay. And then they kept showing Tyron Smith on the sideline geared up, which was driving me nuts. Why even be in gear if they're not going to play him? That was kind of a weird aspect of the game. But it obviously played a role in it. We started off the game 3 and out after the Cardinals had a long drive, scored 3 points. We go 3 and out. Cardinals now come back out and score 7. So right off the bat, we're down 10 in catch-up mode with 3 backup offensive linemen. So it's never something that you want to see. But if having those guys play bought Zach Martin and Biotish some time and they're going to be fully healthy, or if not another chance of them being injured when they play, then I think it was the right move.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting. It's kind of crazy to say this out loud, but I honestly think Tyler Biotish was the most missed offensive lineman because you just dating back to training camp and you heard that Tyler Biotish was given the role of, you know, figuring out protection for plays now. Dak isn't doing that. So now you bring in Hoffman. That's a rookie. Not only that, but you got to add back on the protection aspect as well as trying to decipher what the defense is trying to do to Dak Prescott. I think that had a big impact personally. So interesting to see if both of those or all 3 of those guys are healthy going into the Patriots week. I mean, they have a good defensive line. We're going to need those guys, truthfully. Going back to the chat, Cowboys are not in the Eagles or 49ers league. We are a wild card team, says Ultra. The pessimistic Ultra is coming with that, man. I think that, listen, this loss hurts, but it's early on in the season. You still play the Eagles twice. You still play the Commanders twice and the Giants again. So it hurts, but it's not interdivision. It's not a loss like that where you should beat the Giants or you should beat the Commanders, which the Commanders are kind of looking sneaky good right now. Surprisingly, if you can kind of fluster Sam Howell, obviously you got a good chance to win. But what are your thoughts on that? You think that the Eagles are still the best team, or?
So I always watch the NFC East games. Like I'll try to watch the Eagles whenever I
Mm-hmm.
can. They look pretty good on Monday night, but prior to that, their other games against the Vikings, and I can't remember who they kicked off the
Patriots.
season against, the Patriots. They didn't look
Yeah.
like they didn't look as scary as they did last year. And sure, maybe they need a few games to kind of get it under their belt, but they should have lost to the Vikings. The Vikings basically fumbled the game away to them, fumbling in the red zone, and I think the Vikings fumbled 3 times. Kirk Cousins lit their defense up. And they just didn't look scary to me. Obviously, on Monday night, they had a pretty good game against the Buccaneers. They kind of played a full game, which I hadn't seen yet. But a division matchup, until Jalen Hurts beats Dak Prescott, I think we have just as good a chance as anyone to dethrone the Eagles for the title of the East.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I think that the Eagles, while they are 3-0, I think that the Cowboys have looked better in the sum of their 3 games, and the Eagles have looked better in the sum of their 3 games, I guess. So 3-0 to 2-1. Obviously, you'd rather be 3-0, but I personally think the Cowboys have looked better. And you talk about the 4 starters out versus the Cardinals, and listen, like the Cardinals, people want to say that they're the worst team in the league, but I would give that to the Bears, and I think that the Cardinals, they hear the outside noise. They obviously don't want to be claimed as the worst team in the league. Those players don't want to lose. The coaches do not want to lose. The front office is the thing, people that are trying to tank. So at the end of the day, they're going to come out there and they're going to try to win. And, got to give them their props for coming out and having a good game plan. So,
yeah, Josh Dobbs looked legit. That's twice we've played him, and both times the guy looks like he belongs in the NFL.
Yeah. Here we go. Do you think that the Cowboys need another wide receiver? Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, question mark.
I can't see us trading for either of those guys. Would we take them if in a fictional world? Sure. If it's Madden, yeah, let's trade for them. I don't see it being realistic. It's going to be the time of the year that you always hear these trade talk. Cowboys are always going to be linked to every player, every good player that's on a team that's not doing well. Yeah. But how often do we ever actually pull the trigger on anything like that?
Yeah, hardly ever. I will say that, like, if you feel like the investments that you made in the offseason aren't working out the best that you thought they would, you might look for somebody during trade deadline kind of parts of the season. But I don't think that they will right now. Especially, Mike Evans, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 2-1, so they're probably not going to try to get rid of him. Devontae Adams, his contract is huge for the Raiders.
Insane.
So, yeah, I just don't see that. I think that you need to really figure out how to get Brandon Cooks more involved. I mean, you talk about like his speed and stuff like that. If you want people to respect his speed, you have to give him more routes downfield. And that comes down to the protection, allowing Dak to have the time to throw, and then getting the play call in against the right defense to actually utilize him downfield. If you see single heights, safety over the top, even if it is supposed to be, camouflaged in the look, you still have to call the play in order for Brandon Cooks to run that, so that they have it in the back of their mind that, oh, this guy can still run, and take the top off of a defense. So Brandon Cooks' utilization, man, has been weird in my opinion.
Well, compared to training camp, most of his touchdowns in training camp were exactly what you just said. He was running up the middle, and then he was running across field and burning everyone. You haven't seen them try to do that a single time to him. And against the Arizona Cardinals, that would have been the perfect time to throw one of those up. And I don't know if it was just they didn't ever have they felt like they weren't going to have the blocking to get it off, but not try it at least once in the game seems like a very big coaching error.
Yeah, I agree. Cowboys in 3 games have had 73 plays in the red zone, and the next team has had only 53. You solve the red zone issues, they will be fine, says Ultra. So that's a good point. Yep. I mean, they've had plenty of opportunities down there. They just haven't got the touchdowns. I mean, it's weird because it's one, I think that the rain game has to play into that. I think that you factor in, and they weren't even bad against the Giants. So then you factor in the Jets game. That was, It's weird because if you look at the charts, they're very predictable in what they're running in the red zone. First and second down, it seems like 80% of the time they're going to go for a run. And then whenever you get when you know that it's going to be a pass from the defensive third and long, you're putting your quarterback at a hindrance to actually complete the third down conversion. So it's weird, but I just think, yeah, you figure that stuff out and this offense is going to be fine. Now, my biggest worry for the team as a whole is what do they do against a very good runner and what do you do against a mobile quarterback? Because just thinking about the other two big teams, the Niners have Christian McCaffrey. They use Deebo Samuel in a running back role. And then the Eagles, I mean, of course, Jalen Hurts hasn't run as much as past seasons. But, I mean, you just talk about that. Like, if you cannot stop a mobile quarterback, I don't think that you're with the big dogs, personally.
Every quarterback coming out of college now, they're all athletic. Like, not only can they throw the ball, but they're athletic. The days of a Peyton Manning or Eli Manning, or they won't make it far enough to have their arm talent actually show off. You have to be athletic in today's NFL. And if you don't have that defense that can stop the quarterback from scrambling and then also stop him from throwing, if you do get lucky enough to make the postseason, you ain't making it very far. And you're right. Playing against Jalen Hurts and his mobile ability, and then playing against even Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy can still move. Like, if he gets outside the pocket, the guy can still wheel it up enough to pick up a first down. There's some scary teams we got coming up. And another one that we're not really talking about, obviously, yet is the Dolphins. Like, after watching the Dolphins put up 70,
goodness.
like, I think they might be the scariest offense that we're going to play against. And speed,
Absolutely.
they have multiple running backs that can do it. They have multiple wide receivers that can do it. Tua's looks like he's finally figured it out. They look like an offense that is going to give the Cowboys nightmares. Forget the 49ers and forget the Eagles. I think the Dolphins, luckily they're not in our conference, but I think the Dolphins might be the scariest offense that we play in the next couple months.
Yeah. Especially if you can't figure out your red zone issues, because that team's going to put up points on you, regardless of how good your defense is. And so
it's a track meet.
Yeah,
it's a track meet. You got to go tit for tat.
Especially losing Diggs, that is huge. So for me, I've kind of thrown this out on the Twitter sphere, is like, if you could get a Byron Murphy from the Vikings, if you could get a Marcus Peters from the Raiders, I personally would do that. Move Bland back into the slot. Obviously, you want to give this guy time, but how long can you wait if it's really going to derail your season? Because we've seen it in years past. 2022, Anthony Brown goes down, and he wasn't very good either, but he goes down, and man, it was like every other week, opposing quarterbacks just completely picked apart our cornerback too. So
I'll ask you that though. What did you think about Bland's game? I don't think he played awful. It looked like he had a little bit of jitters in the first half, but did you think he played bad?
I personally don't think that he played bad, but it's weird because the Cardinals don't really have weapons like that. Like, they have Rondale Moore, they have Hollywood Brown, but Josh Dobbs is throwing. They don't have a great offensive line where it's going to hold up against our pass rush. I will give it to them, though. They did play one-on-one versus our pass rushers, and they played pretty well. So it's kind of interesting because I just want to see him be good against a better offense, I guess. Because Rondale Moore, I mean, he's a name, but he hasn't really produced all that much in the NFL. Hollywood, he's good, but it's like, I'm really not even impressed with Gilmore, truthfully. Like, I thought that he kind of had a down game as well. So I don't know, man. It's weird. This secondary, I really thought was going to kind of rise to the calling. Especially Jaron Kearse. He probably played his worst game ever as a Cowboy.
He looked awful.
So I don't know. It's really, I don't know if you can draw conclusions after one game, but for me, I would rather send a 6th, 7th round pick to the Raiders or the Vikings if they're trying to get those contracts off the books, and they're really not that much. I've already checked into all this stuff, and even if it costs you a 4th in 2024 or something like that, I would trade that for this season, because off season, you went all in. You got the Gilmores, you got the Brandon Cooks. Do not let Diggs going down completely derail your season. You got to continue to go for it and replace. Obviously, Byron Murphy and Marcus Peters aren't what Diggs is, but they're above average corners in this league, and I still think Marcus Peters is a gambler where he can create some turnovers like Diggs can. So I don't know, man. It's hard to tell, but Bland, I think that he's better in the slot. So
Oh yeah, he's been an absolute beast in the slot. Well, how many games do you think you wait though? Do you think they're possibly waiting for us to play an offense like the San Francisco 49ers? Because realistically, I'm going to be honest, the Patriots offense isn't scary. There's nothing on the Patriots offense that should scare us. I honestly think we match up pretty good with the Patriots offense. We do better when we play against bigger backs. They don't have that speed guy in the backfield. Mac Jones can run, but I don't think you're really worried about him running. And then their wide receivers just don't really make me scared at all. So do you think they wait to see what Deron Bland can at least do against them? Or do you think they wait till, I guess if he has a bad game against the Patriots, that kind of shows you what you need to know?
Well, I think one thing's for sure this next game is going to work in our favor is one, Mac Jones is not a mobile quarterback. He sits in the pocket, so that's a plus for us. Two, they don't really have wide receivers that scare you on the outside. More so, they have tight ends. So the Hunter Henrys, which I believe Jaron Kearse can match up against. So I like our matchup as far as the Patriots go. Moving on to the Niners game, though, you're talking about Brandon Ayuk, who's deadly as far as route running ability. And then you talk about more of a physical guy in Deebo Samuel that gets yards after the catch. That kind of worries me because you're either putting Gilmore on an island against one of those two guys, which I don't think that he can match up against Brandon Ayuk. Gilmore a little, or Deebo Samuel a little bit more, just because I think that they're both physical and they kind of match up size wise. But then you're sticking Bland over on Brandon Ayuk, and I don't really like that matchup either because you're asking him to kind of be on the island. I think that the defense was really predicated on rushing forward, dropping the rest in coverage, and putting your corners on an island and allowing your safeties to kind of roam free to make turnovers.
Clean up,
and
do the
exactly.
clean up.
And without Diggs on the other side, it takes away that aspect of the defense. So it's a hindrance to not only the defense and the people that are out there, but to Dan Quinn, because what he can call or what's worked in the past to eliminate some playmakers doesn't work now. So it's going to be interesting to see if he shades a hooker over to Bland's side. How does that open up the other half of the field? It's a bunch of questions that need answered. So I won't say I'm worried because I do trust Dan Quinn and Al Harris for that matter. But at the end of the day, man, we got to see it to believe it in Bland.
Yeah, well, as far as Josh Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals, they're the worst offense that we're facing in these next couple weeks. And then even after the San Fran 49ers, you got the Chargers, which they've been lighting people up. They've been putting points up, and that's the Kellen Moore rematch game, right? So it doesn't get easier from the Arizona Cardinals, that's for sure. And a game that we thought was going to be a blowout, maybe gives everyone the little kick in the ass that they needed to get back on track. I don't believe that everyone thought they were top shit and we're going to walk all over the Cardinals. I just think it was an off game and everything just seemed very, very weird about it.
I do I don't believe that they thought that they were going to walk over them, but I do think that the coaching staff felt like, hey, we can sit these guys because more than likely our defense is going to make up for the deficiency also on offense. And that got us in trouble because our offense needed to score points. And you get down in that red zone where everything's more confined and the throwing lanes are more clogged up. Dak has to roll out more because he doesn't trust his protection, whether it was good protection or not. That hurts you.
His clock's going off. He's like, I got to do something. Yeah. And that's actually that's a good point. You don't know what's going through Dak's brain thinking, oh, shit, I got these three backup guys blocking for me, right? But going forward into the New England game, what's something that you think we have to do besides red zone offense to secure a victory against them?
Against the Patriots?
Yeah, against the Patriots, yeah.
Truthfully, I don't. And maybe this is me just being more positive than I should, but I don't think that we're going to have a tough time versus the Patriots. It's at home. It's against and yes, they signed Will Grier, they signed Zeke, and they might know some of our stuff. Apparently we're changing the hand signals, whatever. I don't play into that stuff. I think that our defense matches up more than enough against their offense, and I think that as long as our offense is up-tacked with our 5 starters, we're going to, eliminate their pass rush, and Dak is going to be precise and pick them apart. Now, what I will say is that if the offensive line isn't intact, and you get to Matt Judon, you get a kid out of Alabama, I forgot his name, the D tackle, Christian Barmore. If you get those guys if they're getting pressure on your quarterback, that speeds everything up. You can't have the long routes, which allows the safeties to sync up even more, and it really makes the throwing lanes even harder for Dak Prescott. So one thing I'll say though, man, is the defense has to create turnovers. I don't know that this West Coast scheme, with how much time it takes off of the clock, if you're not getting at least one turnover a game and you're not good in the red zone, you're at a severe deficiency, in my opinion. So,
oh yeah, this Dan Quinn defense has been built on turnovers. Last 2 seasons, we've led the league in them, and it was kind of weird. You kept expecting it on Sunday night. You're like, okay, it's coming. It's coming. A fumble's coming. An interception's coming, and it just never ended up happening. And they really needed that, and the offense needs it just as bad as the defense does, because, like you said, the way that they move downfield and kind of burn off the clock, the more possessions they get, the better.
So Ultra is bringing up a point. He said that Deron Bland was an outside corner in the Niners game, playoff game last year, and they only scored 19 points. In my opinion, Trayvon Diggs, this iteration of Trayvon Diggs, is better than Gilmore is.
Oh yeah,
for this Cowboys team. So I just think the speed, the understanding, and what he's soaked in as a sponge from Gilmore, it really can't be told how much he actually was going to learn. I think that he was on the road for an All-Pro season, first team All-Pro. You talk about 2 forced turnovers that first game, the interception the second game, answered the calling about his physicality from the season prior. I mean, he was lights out. So
he was the best corner in football, in my opinion, in the first 2 games.
Exactly. So if you're, and I liked Gilmore as a number 2. Gilmore is good. He's still, I would probably say top 20 corners in the league, maybe top 15. But when you're asking him to be the guy again, and then you have young corners on the outside with him, Bland. You have some of the younger guys, as far as if they're going to allow them to play as a safeties, Wanye, Marquise Bell. You're asking him to stay on that island. I don't know that he's completely locked down like he was prior. Are you kind of on the same page with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a known fact. Cornerbacks and running backs, once they hit a certain age, 30 is usually the mark. They do lose their speed. It's just the test of time, right? No one's beat it. And there's no difference for Gilmore. He's 33. He's bounced around. He's done it for a long time in the NFL. And you're right. He's good against a second or third wide receiver. But if they're going to start game planning to go at him, it gets a little bit scary. He was noticeably being picked on, and even the first 2 games when Diggs was in there, you could just tell they weren't even attempting to go to Diggs' side. They were just going towards Gilmore's side, and he held his own. But you're right. I don't think he's what he used to be. He's not a CB1, which isn't a knock on the guy. It's not a knock on him at all. It's just, hopefully, with a second week under Deron Bland's belt, he's able to shoulder a little bit more than he could against the Cardinals.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't think that people understand how DQ rolled out this secondary. He didn't care about traveling his best corner with their best wide receiver, because he knew he had 2 capable guys on the outside. Now, when you only have Gilmore or Diggs last year, you have to travel. That in itself is a huge facet of the game that nobody's talking about, or at least I haven't heard anybody talk about, because you have to travel Diggs not Diggs, but Gilmore to the bigger names if they're killing you. Which who knows if Bland can play on the left side like he can play on the right side. I have no idea. We haven't seen that stuff. So it's going to be a question that has to be answered later on in the season. Ultra saying name the 49ers corners. Tre'Davious Ward and I think Lenore are their corners. So either way, it really doesn't matter. Yes, they're not big names for the 49ers as far as corners go, but they have like 100-fold better linebackers than we have.
Yes,
which makes up a big thing. And then I would say that their best safety is better than our best safety. Hufanga is a good free range safety. So at the end of the day, you can't compare apples to apples. You just have to expect somebody, as far as on the defensive side, to rise up to the occasion and be that much better to make up for Diggs going down.
Well, the issue, even when your players are having an off game, you need your coaches to have an on game. And collectively, that didn't happen. So if we do have guys that are out or guys that are down, we need our coaches to step up. Dan Quinn, Super Bowl winning coach, Mike McCarthy, Super Bowl winning coach, Dan Quinn, not as a head coach, but he's either or. He's still a defensive coordinator, Super Bowl winning coach. Those guys need to now be back on the drawing board and see what absolutely killed them against the Cardinals, because the NFL is a copycat league. You can't tell me that the Patriots weren't looking at what the Cardinals did very well against the Cowboys and aren't going to come out and try to replicate that at least a little bit. Yeah. So learn from your mistakes, get back out, get on track. We know what it's like being Cowboys fans. When we win, it's like, it's our year. And when we lose, the world's ending, right? Like I basically didn't even go on social media Monday because I knew it was just going to be a cesspit. So we know what it's like, right? We just got to get back to winning. And once we beat the Patriots, it's on to the Niners, and everyone's going to be happy and thinking we're Super Bowl contenders again.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But one thing I do want to mention though is, like, yes, it's a copycat league, but do the Cowboys ever copy anybody else's stuff? Like, I never see them, being as smart as the rest of the league. Like, if the RPO or the quarterback sneak is absolutely decimating other teams, why are you not using it? If pre-snap motion and the Kyle Shanahans, the Sean McVays are allowing their quarterbacks to win pre-snap by trying to send somebody in motion and see if somebody follows him across, dictating whether or not it's a zone or man-to-man coverage, why are you not doing that? Do you kind of feel like the same with that type of stuff? I mean, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's funny because we changed coaches. We've been hearing this for how long? It was Sean Linehan, and then it was Jason Garrett, and then it was Kellen Moore. Now it's Mike McCarthy. It's kind of always feels like the same song and dance a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, we do lack a little bit of the creativity. And I agree. I don't feel like we do copy anyone. We try to keep doing the same thing, and it doesn't seem to work out.
Yeah, man, it's strange. I do feel like the first two games, I felt like we were putting in everybody in the best position to succeed other than Michael Gallup. Now, the third game flips everything on its head. Michael Gallup was really the only player that I thought was good on offense. I guess Tyler Smith was pretty good.
Well, and don't bash TP20. TP20 had a pretty good game. 23 carries.
TP was good.
He's
and Rico
him
Dowdle to that extent. But like I guess just outlier from like the first two games. To the third, Michael Gallup was flipped on its head, right? He was good.
Oh, definitely.
He had 6 catches, 92 yards. Should have had another pass interference flag thrown against that, which I guess we can talk about also, which was huge momentum shift. Them picking up that flag. It's strange because I was almost like, okay, let Tolbert get more snaps, but Michael Gallup actually looked like he could separate in that game.
He looked like Michael Gallup of old, and they should have actually given him some more chances on the outside. They should have thrown it up to Michael Gallup. I think they went to CeeDee Lamb on a fade route in the end zone. If you're going to a fade route, the only guy you should be throwing a fade route to in the end zone is Michael Gallup. Anything in the corner of the end zone, that was that guy's wheelhouse. That was his bread and butter before his knee injury. And he had some of the nicest catches in the NFL from the span, I want to say 2019 to 2021. So if you're going to throw that type of route, throw it to Michael Gallup and let the guy go up and get it.
I was just about to say that exact same thing, Anth. If you look at the other coordinators in the league, what do they do best? They isolate their playmakers and allow them to get one-on-one coverage looks. Who is your best red zone threat right now? In my opinion, it's Michael Gallup as far as passing game goes. Michael Gallup has body control to get his feet in. He can beat anybody, in my opinion, on a jump ball that you're going to be facing. So why is he not being utilized in the red zone? That's probably his best trait right now, because he kind of lost that burst with the ACL injury. If you can use him in a Des Bryant type role, why are you not?
Yeah, it's super strange. I was yelling at the screen. I was yelling at it. If you're going to throw it in the red zone, throw it to Michael Gallup, at least to give the guy the chance. Not to mention he was the hot hand of the game. He's felt like the only wide receiver getting separation and challenging the ball. I'm sure you saw that the fade route and saw the slow motion to CeeDee Lamb, him calling for the flag before even challenging the ball. I mean, did he see the ball? Did he not see the ball? But I feel like Michael Gallup is high pointing that ball no matter what. He's not even thinking about a flag.
He's going over that DB and dunking on his head and telling him he's too small after the play. I mean, literally, that's what Michael Gallup does, and he's done in the past. He's done it against very good DBs in the past as well. I mean, Jalen Ramsey for that extent. So it's weird. I just want to see them put Michael Gallup in a better situation, because really, whenever I heard that we are going to the West Coast offense, I was like, okay, that works great for CD, Turpin, Brandon Cooks. Oh man, Michael Gallup, can he separate? Does he have that sudden stop start? Can he do that stuff anymore? I was like, going into the season, I was kind of worried about Michael Gallup. Game 3, he looked like he could separate. He looked very, very good. So I want to continue to see them build upon that and actually utilize him in the red zone, because I think that that's where he can best be utilized. So I'm glad that we're on the same page with that, man. Let's look at the chat real quick, see if they got anything rocking. I did see a question up here earlier. So Ultra said, or Eric Castillo said something about Kyle Pitts trade. I know that kind of got shot down by Jane Slater, but just for fun, I guess, would you rather have Kyle Pitts for a second round pick, or would you rather have, and this was brought up by Ultra, Zach Ertz for a 6th?
Ertz for the 6th.
Yeah,
I think Ertz for the 6th for me, just because second round picks hold a lot of value. And I mean, Pitts, sure, he has all the intangibles that you hope for, but I think Ertz could do exactly what we need him to do in the offense and still have the offense move nicely, and then still be able to have a second round pick for next year.
Yeah, first of all, Ertz would be much easier to get, in my opinion. They're probably trying to tank, so their front office would be willing to deal him. Not only that, but it allows you to have a veteran in the tight end room to kind of help these younger guys, and he's a Super Bowl winner. So it allows another Super Bowl, guy that's won the Super Bowl in the locker room, and it just adds some veteran savvy as well. So I would rather do that. I think that Kyle Pitts, he has like 3 touchdowns over his entire career. I mean,
he hasn't done much. He had a lot of hype coming out, but he hasn't really done anything since he's been in the NFL.
And it's like, if you're talking about red zone deficiencies, Kyle Pitts is not a good asset to grab. Yes, he's good. Don't get me wrong. I think that he could help this team. If you made the trade, I would probably be all over Twitter like, yeah, we just stole Kyle Pitts, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the statistics, and obviously, yes, Desmond Ritter's throwing to him, and Arthur is he runs a very, very run-heavy scheme anyways there in Atlanta. So, those things have to be factored in, but at the same time, man, I would much rather have us getting a big D tackle to help, because Mozzie doesn't seem like he's feeling what we thought that he could do, or another linebacker, another DB, something like that. And it's weird because I'm saying defensive side of the ball, but if your defense is the elite unit, you have to keep that intact with Diggs going down. So you got to fill that void, and I don't know that Bland is going to fill that void yet. So we will see, I guess.
Well, with playing onto what you just said, trading for defense makes more sense for me, because I agree. I want this defense to be great, and the defense scared me more last game than the offense did. We know what this offense is. The offense needs a lead. The offense is gonna, I hate to say it, but dink and dunk their way downfield. That's what it feels like. In the first 3 games, it doesn't feel like we're gonna be. It's not gonna be a track meet. We need to get the lead, and then we need to just methodically work our way downfield. So if we can get players that help us on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to play into our offensive side of the ball. And linebackers is just, the more we talk about it, the more scared I get about it. And I wouldn't be surprised if LVE maybe starts getting replaced by a couple of the, like you said, Wanye Thomas. Why not get him on that? Why isn't he on the field for that play when they're running trips? Leighton Vander Esch is never going to run down the running back, right? He didn't. He just ran beside him, and then just a lot slower. Why not have a speed guy out there that's a young guy that's hungry too, right? Thomas is playing for a second contract. Why not have him out there and let him fly around when you, granted, even so, they thought they were going to pass it in that situation. Why not have him out there? He's going to cover more ground than LVE in the situational spot of the field.
Yeah, man, it's weird because like LVE will have one of these horrible games, and then he'll come back and have like an all-star game, 13 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. So hopefully that is what happens against the Patriots. But yeah, Wanye Thomas, I think that they kind of set him down because of the phantom offsides on the field goal. I didn't see that, and just talking about that, 13 penalties for 100+ yards for the Cowboys. You factor the red zone offense. The defense allowing 200 plus rushing yards, 7.5 yards per play, 50% third down conversion rate, and then you factor in the penalties, so the red zone penalties, and then the defense allowing the rushing yards. Recipe for disaster. You've cooked yourself up a giant L, and now you have to eat it.
Zero turnovers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, like literally we led in a lot of stats. We led the game in a bunch of stats, but the stats that mattered, like you just read off, plus the zero turnover, the 13 penalties. If you win with that, we were live in Dallas for the Thanksgiving Day game against the Raiders a couple years ago.
Oh,
and
God.
I think they had 13 or 14 penalties. And this game felt very, very similar. It felt like there was a flag on every second play. And sure, some of them were pretty good calls, but the Thomas offside on the field goal, that didn't happen. You can watch the replay. He wasn't offside. And then they ended up, I think they still ended up only having 3 points, but they ended up shaving off 35 or 40 seconds just before half, kind of ruining our chance to get down and score a touchdown. So it was a detrimental play, and it was just a terrible missed call. And in today's day and age, for them to be able to miss an offside call is just mind-boggling.
Well, you just talk about the penalties. Like, let's just run through this real quick. The Josh Dobbs RPO runs down the field. They hold them to 3. Very good, right? Then our offense comes back. They got an opportunity. Run. You get in third down and like 6. Then you get a false start. And then you get a holding, pushes you back to like 3rd and 13 or whatever it was. We get the little easy dump off for the tackle, have to punt it. They come back with the Rondale Moore play that sets them up 10-0. I mean, the penalties killed us on that first drive. Then you talk about the phantom call. You talk about them picking up the flag against Michael Gallup. The end of the half drive where we're driving down the field, and then that gets completely stalled out by a offensive pass interference by CeeDee Lamb, which I didn't see. I think that both of them had their arms extended. They were hand fighting, and then you have to create separation and look for the ball. So what are you going to do? Rip your hands away? The reffing, and I'm not going to blame it on the reffing because we got outplayed in all facets of the game, but the reffing was frustrating as well, and just them not being disciplined is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it was a weird game, and for it to happen on a game that I felt so confident that we were going to win, it just seems so Cowboy-esque to me, because I'm usually pretty reserved for it. Like a game like this, I'm usually the one saying, guys, like, Adam and Alex can get pretty hyped up. I'm usually like, guys, listen, this is a game that we go in and lose. And it was actually the opposite. Adam's like, oh, could you think this is a trap game? I was like, no, we're the better team. We're going to absolutely get ready for us to be having shots of screech by halftime because we're going to be blowing them out so bad. And it kind of brought me back down to earth to know that any game is winnable. And it definitely puts me in the seat going into every game this year that I'm ready to watch a Cowboys game because I know it's going to be close, and any game is losable and any game is winnable. So,
you know what's bad, Anth? This is like, excuse me. After that game 1, so we beat the Giants 40-0. Then I'm watching the Monday nighter. Aaron Rodgers goes down. I was like, realistically, this defense could not have a touchdown scored against them in 3 straight weeks. Then we let the long play to the Jets. I was like, okay, that's one play. Realistically, I was like, 3 field goals for the Cards. They come out and put you on for 28 points. Like, that is crazy to me. Like, you think that you're the best defense. Like, it feels like I feel like I should take some blame because I did crown this defense as the best defense in the league.
We all did, man. Every Cowboys fan, I don't care who you are as a Cowboys fan, all of us were bought into the hype. We thought, we all thought it, man. We all thought it.
But it's like, you get that 28 points put on your head, and you let up 200 yards rushing. I don't know if they had 200 passing, but it was probably pretty close. If not, they did. So, I mean, you have 400 yards of total offense on your head, and then plus 28 points. You take a fat L to a team that everybody thinks is bottom of the league, bottom third of the league at least. It's kind of takes you down, your ego down a little bit, kind of deflates your head a little bit. So, personally, I think that this Patriots game is going to be a big, emphatic win. I surely hope that they don't leave there 2-2, because you have a very big test the next week. and then you have to play your old OC in the Chargers, Kellen Moore, the week after. So I personally it's early in the season, but I think the Patriots game's a must win. So,
oh man, those are the games. So I agree. You gave up the one against the Cardinals. That was your gimme, right? Say
yeah,
you beat the Cardinals, then okay, if you lose to the Patriots, whatever, get back on track. Well, you guys messed yourself up at getting that. So I hopefully want to go 3-0 into the bye in the next 3 weeks. Realistically, 2-1 would be nice. We definitely don't want 1-2, and we definitely don't want 0-3. And I think all of those situations are plausible. I think it could go any way at this point. I don't know. I don't know which way it's going to go, but this loss to the Arizona Cardinals has definitely brought me back down to earth. I do think we get back on track. It's very Cowboys-esque to go out and lose one that they should win, and then come out the next week and stomp the team they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not off the hype train, but I'm just saying if you go out and you lose to the Patriots, the Niners, let's say that you win versus the Chargers, then you go to the Eagles, and depending on their record, you lose. You might see the Cowboys blow this thing up because you talk about they don't have a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th round pick. At least I believe so. So they can get some contracts off the book. If they go into the deadline and they don't feel good about winning the division, realistically that is a possibility. So you have to make sure as a player, and like those are your brothers, those are your guys in the locker room. If you don't want to see them leave and you want to continue to build towards a championship, you have to go out there like every single game is a playoff game. No more of this overlooking opponents. No more of this, oh, we don't have to game plan for this. Let's look a week ahead. Whatever it is, stop doing that. Focus on the game at hand and go in there and win it. And don't just win it and bury those dudes. You don't want anybody coming into your house thinking that they have a chance against you.
Oh, definitely. And you just hyped me up. I'm ready to go play some football right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone wants me on their team, but the issue is, and I like how you said that. I hope they don't get into that situation where they think about blowing stuff up and think about being out of it. On a losing week, Sunday can't come soon enough. I just want it to be Sunday so bad because the week after a loss is always the worst.
Yeah, man. It was kind of, for a fan, the fan part of me was like, how did we lose this? But for the person that makes content and stuff like that, I don't really consider myself a content creator. I'm smaller,
hey man, you make content. You're a content creator.
Yeah, but either way, I was kind of excited to kind of talk about this and put my feelings out on the page and just talk about it with other fans. The chat's kind of lively as well, so leave more questions. So Bot G, Eric, shout out Bot G Eric.
There he is.
He says, one question for Anth. Speaking of Kellen Moore, how many shots of tequila will you take at Cowboys versus Chargers tailgate in order to help the Cowboys win? And 2, EJ, can you join us? Is that at Chargers?
Yeah, so it's Monday night. We're flying down to the Chargers game. We're meeting Boots, obviously, to go to SoFi. And just like at training camp, Boots showed up with way more tequila than we know how to drink in Canada. And I don't know, for me to guarantee, I want to be able to remember the game. So I'm limiting myself to like 3, maybe 4 shots of tequila. I want to remember. Who cares if they win if I'm blackout drunk going into the game, right? But I'll say 3 or 4. Boots, I'll say 10, but you have to take 6 of them.
Boots, man, that is a long flight or a long drive for me to go all the way to SoFi. So I will probably pass on that. But I was thinking about maybe the Thanksgiving game. We will see.
Oh, do it.
Man, it was such a fun time going down there for the Jets game. It was funny seeing all the Jets fans faces, man. They kind of knew that they were gonna lose, but they kind of got hyped after that Garrett Wilson, it was 10-7. They got hyped and they started talking some trash, and then we just started obliterating them. That was just fun to see, man.
18 going into half, right? It was 18-10 going into half, so they were probably feeling pretty good. I actually have a similar story, and I feel for Jets fans because my very, very first Cowboys game I ever went to, it was at AT&T Stadium, so I wasn't an opposing fan, but it was, I want to say 2015, where it was week 2 against the Patriots, 2015. Both Tony Romo and Des Bryant were out in week 2. And the Des Bryant, Tony Romo, two of my all-time favorite Cowboys. First game, both out. We get smashed 30-6. Very damper on my day that time. So I can feel with Jet fans for that situation.
Yeah, I actually picked them to come out of that division. So for them to lose Aaron Rodgers that early in the season, man, I feel for him because we've dealt with that with Dak. So we'll see. Man, I don't know if the Patriots have the firepower to really hang with our defense. But just rolling back, kind of circling back around to this question again. Let's say that two of those three offensive linemen are out. Which of the which is the offensive lineman you want in during that game? Because they have Matt Judon, they have the Christian Barmore up as a D tackle. You know, if you don't have Zach or Tyler, which one would you want to have in that game if you had to pick just one?
I know you were talking about Biadasz being the guy that calls the schemes and who's rushing and stuff, but for me, you got to go with your best player. Zach Martin to me is the Cowboys' best player. You always want to have your best player on the field. Absolutely. Give me Zach Martin.
And Eric brought this up earlier. We need a crack 'em if you got him. For
there it is.
Anth in there, so
crack 'em if you got him. Let's go.
Shout out CanFan podcast, man. They're a lot of fun. If you guys are watching this and you haven't checked out CanFan in the odd realm of possibility that you haven't, go check those guys out, man. They're so much fun to listen to and just talk. And I think that they're like Cowboys comedy with real talk. It's just the best of both worlds because I love to just chat and then I also love to laugh. So
we appreciate it, man. We appreciate it.
Fun time, man. I guess I don't want to hold you for too long, so I guess I will get your score predictions for the Patriots versus Cowboys at AT&T.
Score prediction. I haven't even really thought about this. You kind of put me on the spot, and then I'm gonna have to roll with this tomorrow on our podcast with it. I'm gonna go. Yeah. Obviously, I'm saying we're bouncing back, and I think we bounce back big. Do they have a little bit of shakiness and still let some points? Possibly, but I'm gonna go with a solid. It's finally the time the offense hits the run. The offensive wide receivers are going to have a couple touchdowns. I'm going 34-17. I think 34-17 could be a plausible score.
34-17. You heard it here. Do you have any big
for Cowboys? For Cowboys.
Definitely. Got to be for the Cowboys. 34-17. Do you have any big boldies, man?
Bold predictions. A wide receiver scores a touchdown. Right now, it doesn't seem like that would be bold, but we haven't had one yet. I'm gonna go CeeDee Lamb 2 touchdowns.
You stole mine actually because I was just about to say if you guys remember back to 2021, we played the Patriots as well, and in that game, CeeDee went for 140 some, had I think 9 catches. 2 touchdowns and the walk-off touchdown that you saw the meme baby. Of, man, waving off.
Oh, the best. That is such a good clip.
Oh, yeah, man. I love using that GIF, man. But so I was going to say CeeDee for 2 tutties and a 100-yard game. But now that you said that, I'm going to have to go with the safety trifecta. I'm going to go with it again. Dono is back, so we're going to go with a sack, fumble, interception. Any of the safeties can get any of them. But I'm going to go with the safety trifecta. And as far as a score prediction, man, I got to think about this one. I actually think this is going to be a lot closer than we anticipate. Excuse me. I'm going to go with 24 to 20. 24-20.
24-20, a barn burner.
Cowboys, man. So we're going to see if that comes to fruition. Who knows? I really do hope that the Cowboys bounce back because 2-2 does not sound good to me, man. I want to go 3-1 into I don't even know what stadium is called for the Niners. What is that?
Levi's Stadium.
Levi's. Yep, there you go. Levi's Stadium. I want to go 3-1 into Levi's Stadium. Hopefully they're 4-0, so we kind of have that bad juju on their side of Brock Purdy hasn't lost as a starter, whatever it is, in the regular season. So. Either way, man, we got to get this win. It's a must-win game, in my opinion. Do you have anything else, Anth?
No, man, I'm pretty good. I just want to say I appreciate you having me on. I'm always willing to talk some Cowboys football on a Tuesday night, and anytime you need a fill-in guest, I'm more than willing to fill in, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man, you might have filled in on the podcast, but you're number one in my heart, so it's completely all right. Got to give this dude a big shout out, Anth Besse, for Cowboys Can Fan podcast. If you do not follow them on socials, Twitter, YouTube, they're on. I think you guys are on TikTok, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're on TikTok.
TikTok,
But it's weird. It's no,
man.
it's no football content. It's just Alex in a bikini dancing.
Oh, well, then you have to follow it. So, man, if you don't follow those guys, go ahead and follow them. For me, I am Boys in the Zone, EJ Savage. Both of those things are right there on your screen. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I'm always dropping Twitter content. I basically live and breathe Twitter Cowboys stuff. So follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna start doing the live shows. Probably Tuesday nights is more of my new night. I'm gonna be doing these and continue to like the videos, comment, and subscribe if you're not. And with that being said, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll catch you next time. Peace.